Doug Wiley with Police One. I'm here with Bo Cisco, who is the president and founder of Cisco Strategic Studies. Bo, you have been instructing here at ILEETA, and you've been invited to instruct a number of agencies as well on the issue of body language and deception, particularly with regard to high-risk environments. Can you explain a little about what your training goes into, and give us a précis of perhaps what you would deliver in, say, for example, your ILEETA class here?
The ILEETA class was primarily, I tried to shorten down a longer class to teach here. My classes cover body language from a very basic form to everyday communications to more law enforcement related body language such as interviews, interrogations, contacts on the street, even interpersonal around the agency. And then it also goes on to, and the most important part would be the body language, how it changes in high-risk environments. I teach a tremendous part of the class on high-risk encounters that have the potential to go lethal. And what I try and train people to do is to recognize the situation before it goes lethal. So.
Can you give us a couple of examples? And now we're not going to obviously be able to cover an entire 8-hour or 40-hour course that you do for some agencies and some folks, but some examples of the types of body language and specifically the deceptive body language, which we can share with our Police One audience here, indicative of a potential high-risk environment, high-risk, potentially lethal situation.
Some of the examples that I would use when it comes to that are, I use several of the dash cam videos that are widely used in training and were widely used to train me, but one thing I always thought they missed is they missed pointing out where that point of no return was. And I take a lot of these training videos and I show the different parts of the body language, such as the small body movements that show that when the person has made up in their mind they're going to attack the officer or draw weapons. So a lot of my focus studies on the examples of the body movement just before an attack, just before when someone is trying to make up in their mind the determination on whether they are going to become a lethal encounter.
Right. So, for example, ones that come to mind are, like a target glance, checking the officer's six, looking potentially for an escape route. These are indicative of what may happen next. And can then you recall some of the videotape examples, some of the dash cam examples that we would maybe put up on Police One and say, hey, this is what Bo might say about that?
The one example that I used was an officer, Sergeant Chestnut, who was an interdiction officer in Georgia. And there was he was on a traffic stop and he pulled over two males. And one ended up coming back to the car and shooting Sergeant Chestnut. Now he survived this encounter, but the part that played out, there were several phases of that traffic stop where there were red flags that just either weren't seen or the officer wasn't trained enough to know. Several parts of body language that didn't match, and what I would call just an outlier or a red flag. Parts where when I looked at it, where a person was a very casual traffic stop and a person put his hands up like this, as kind of like, I'm going to come and talk to you. And that was very, very uncharacteristic for the flow of the traffic stop. And that when I watched it, that was my first indicator that something was definitely going to go wrong. It later progressed on, if you watch the video, whereas the passenger who did this is speaking to the officer, his partner's leaning away as he's waiting for something to happen, ever so slightly, but he kept leaning every time he talked, and almost like he was wincing. But it wasn't something very common. And when I saw those indicators, the person shot the officer, and he was trying to calm the officer down, and his partner knew the shot was going to come, and there was a series of events that the officer failed to see.
Right.
And probably through lack of training, just because I've never encountered these type of training in any of my training, and I've been doing this for 15 years.
One other question that comes to my mind is, what are other types of body language that you are teaching your officers about that are not high-risk environment and a high-threat environment types of body language? So just maybe go into a couple of your pieces of your philosophy around things like the interrogation and interview room and what have you, and what types of thinking you are passing along with regard to the interview, the interrogation, that sort of thing.
In law enforcement, I think everything's an interview. The interrogation room is kind of unique. There's a different science that goes along to setting up an interrogation room. I tried to focus mine on the everyday interview. I focus on how to just read people's general reaction to you inserting yourself in their environment. Are they open and comfortable with you being there? Do they close up and maybe become suspicious that you're there? Do they position themselves to show you that they may not want to be where you are? Because as an officer dealing with the public, we sometimes think we're dealing with someone who's good, but you have to recognize the signs to show that why would this person not want to be talking with me, or why are they hiding certain parts, or why do they want to leave? What's making them nervous about me? Other than the uniform, which sometimes makes people nervous anyway, I train them more just to read everyone in a very general basis, and that can lead on to identifying certain alphas in a group, can identify certain people that are trying to keep themselves away from you when they become uncomfortable, and sometimes just reading through a conversation to find out what parts, and even in the smallest micro expression, make people uncomfortable around you, which could turn into just a normal, what you think is a normal casual conversation, get the foothold to start an investigation on what you see, some things you may never have seen before.
It's fascinating stuff. Bo, thank you very much for your work, your time today to talk about it.
Thank you.
Doug Wiley, Police One.